Okay, now that we've focused on completed the inspection part of our assessment, our physical assessment, now we're going to talk about the other methods of assessment for our physical assessment. One of them includes percussion. Percussion, what that is actually tapping on your patient and like listening for different sounds and things like that. That's actually an advanced practice technique that we're not going to be doing as nurses. Typically, certain physicians and specialist providers will be doing that technique. Another technique we use when we are talking about our physical examination is palpation. And that's where we're actually touching our patients and putting our hands on them. So one of the ways that we can use our hands in palpation in our assessment of the respiratory system is actually determining the symmetry with which our patient is breathing. And so you can actually put your hands on their chest and you can have them breathe in and out, and hopefully you will see both hands rise and fall together. Sometimes there are certain conditions where lungs collapsed or some sort of chest trauma where both your hands won't go up and down at the same time. Maybe one will go up and the other won't. So that can help create a visual for you to see whether or not your patient is having symmetrical lung expansion. So other than inspection, the primary technique that we use in our physical examination is auscultation. So we are going to be listening to our patients and listening to their lung sounds. Now, your med-surg book in the oxygenation chapter does have a great video with these different lung sounds, and it has a visual on them so you could see exactly what's happening in the lung and with what it corresponds to with what you're hearing. But I'm going to talk about the different lung sounds and things like that now. Again, I highly recommend for this, when it comes to auscultation, the best way to get familiar and to get comfortable with listening and auscultating to lung sounds is hearing them, obviously. So I can describe them as best as I can, but I have a lot of resources here on your, if I can get there, here on your resources page, all different types of YouTube videos I found that talk about different breathing sounds, and they're actual recordings from actual patients. And so those are really helpful when it comes to familiarizing yourself with listening to these lung sounds. There's resources for you in the skills lab, again, for you to practice. I just encourage you to listen to as many lung sounds as you can to be able to recognize what's considered normal and abnormal, and to familiarize yourself with these different abnormal sounds, okay? So we have, again, normal lung sounds. A lot of you guys like to use the word normal, but we really need to start defining this. Normal is considered clear. We want to hear clear lung sounds. That means air freely moving in and out of the alveoli or the bronchi or wherever we are listening to with our stethoscope. So when we have normal breath sounds or clear breath sounds, we can hear them in a number of different places. And these are these three different areas. Bronchial lung sounds are heard over the high pitch. They're typically high pitched and over the trachea and your larynx up here. And you can see in this photo where you would hear those bronchial sounds. You will hear them pretty loud, and the inspiration and expiration is a pretty similar duration and loudness. So if you want to, you could take your stethoscope, I have mine right here, and you could put it over here, and you would hear, if you put your stethoscope in, take a deep breath in and out, you would hear bronchial lung sounds, hopefully clear bronchial lung sounds. Next, when you would be moving over a little bit to the main right and left bronchus and your larger bronchi, you would be auscultating in these areas right here around the sternum or around the spine, and that's where you would hear bronchovesicular sounds. Okay, they're not as loud, they're a little bit medium pitched, and again, they're over this area. So these different names here refer to the area with which you're hearing the sound. When we're talking about primarily listening to lung sounds, we're talking about vesicular lung sounds. And vesicular lung sounds are the lung sounds heard all over the periphery here. Okay, and this is typically where we put our stethoscopes when we're listening for lung sounds. They're a little bit more low-pitched, a little softer, and oftentimes when we're listening to these lung sounds, you'll hear inspiration a little bit longer and louder than expiration. But this is where you would hear those vesicular lung sounds. So when we talk about bronchovesicular, and vesicular lung sounds, we're talking more about the location of where you are listening. Hopefully, if everything you is considered normal, then you would be describing them or documenting them as clear. But if they are abnormal, we call them adventitious lung sounds. That means they're abnormal. And there's a variety of different things that you can hear with adventitious lung sounds. One of the first things that I have listed here is called crackles, also known as rails. It just depends on how the documentation you have lists it. But it's often heard in the lower lobes here of the lungs, so at the bases of the lungs, and can be defined as two different types. We have coarse crackles or we have fine crackles. And essentially they're the same thing. What they are your alveoli, your little, grape-like structures. They get stuck together and they need to pop open. So they kind of say it's a non-continuous popping sound. Again, the best thing to do is to listen to these sounds. But what I've tried to remember when I'm listening to coarse crackles is that it's the sound of someone pulling Velcro apart. Okay, that's the sound of coarse crackles. You know the little things pulling apart? That's coarse crackles. Now, if I want to hear fine crackles, the best way for you to kind of mimic that sound is to take your hair and to rub it in front of your ear. That is fine crackles. You can hear that it's kind of like a popping sound. It's not very continuous. It's just like pop, pop, pop. Okay, those are crackles. Another thing you might hear are bronchi. Bronchi are more low-pitched rumbling sounds, and what it is air moving through kind of secretions that are in your larger airways, so more in your bronchi, more in your bronchi. Okay, so it's a low-pitched rumbling sound, and it's that air moving through those secretions. So oftentimes it's described as kind of like gravelly, like you're shoveling rocks. It's kind of what they say it sounds like. I can hear it when I think of gravelly rocks. That's how I picture our bronchi. And oftentimes, because it is air moving through secretions, it can be cleared by coughing. So if you feel like you hear that, try to have your patient cough and see if it clears. And we see this sometimes, we hear this a lot with some patients who have bronchitis issues. Wheezes, if you've ever been around anyone with asthma, sometimes you don't even need your stethoscope to hear the audible wheezing, but it is kind of a high-pitched, continuous musical sound. It's air passing through constricted airways, whether that's through swelling, tumors, or causing that narrowing in their airways, but it's typically more continuous sounding. It's, again, like I said, sometimes you don't even need to hear, put your stethoscope on. You can hear people who are wheezing. Like my nephew was I felt like he was having a hard time breathing. I just put my ear to his chest and I could hear the wheezing. And then later on, it was getting worse because he wouldn't stop running around, and I could actually hear the wheezing without even putting my ear to his chest. So that's what wheezing is. And then we have a friction rub. Friction rub is actually when the pleura that encases your lungs and your heart and everything in your thoracic cavity starts kind of rubbing against your ribs. And so it causes kind of a grating sound. Grating like you're grating cheese. Like it's kind of that sound. And it happens every time the patient breathes. Diminish means it's just not as loud. You might have some difficulty hearing. You still hear air movement, but it's not that, again, loud, not as clear to you. Sometimes this happens with our patients who have more subcutaneous tissue, our larger patients, and sometimes our patients who aren't taking deep enough breaths. And so these are ways that you can go ahead and describe auscultating our patients' lung sounds. Now, you can put all these parts of your assessment together and learn a little bit about the difference between hypoxemia versus hypoxia. So there is a difference between these two terms. Unfortunately, it's oftentimes used kind of the same in medical practice, but they're very different terms, and it's important that you know that. So one is a decrease in the oxygen supply to the tissues and cells. That is hypoxia. Okay. The other one is a decrease in oxygen levels in the blood. That is hypoxemia. Anything with emia in it means in the blood. So there is, again, it is important that we understand the differences between hypoxemia and hypoxia. Again, those terms tend to be used interchangeably in practice, but we should, as practitioners and healthcare people who are taking care of patients, that we understand there is a difference. So it's important to remember exactly what respiration is. So respiration is gas exchange at the alveolar level. Okay, so that means at the alveoli, the capillary blood flow comes through, we exchange CO2 for oxygen. Okay, so our blood, if we don't have enough oxygen to switch at the alveolar level for CO2 and oxygen, that could lead to low oxygen levels in the blood. That could lead to hypoxemia. Okay. Hypoxemia means you don't have enough oxygen levels. Your oxygen levels in your blood are low. Okay. Hypoxemia, low oxygen in your blood, is the leading cause of hypoxia. Okay. Hypoxia is, again, that decreased supply in tissues and cells. That blood that now does not have enough oxygen is traveling to your tissues and your cells and is unable to provide enough oxygen to those tissue and cells. So hypoxemia often leads to hypoxia. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Another way that we have hypoxia is poor perfusion, right? Our tissue and cells is just not getting enough blood. Okay, so maybe we don't have low oxygen levels in the blood, but we're not getting the blood. Okay, so I will try and explain this better in class, but hopefully that made you understand it different ways. There's two areas where there's gas exchange happening: at the capillary alveolar membrane and at the actual tissue site. Okay, hypoxemia often occurs at that alveolar capillary membrane site, and hypoxia often is what occurs at that tissue cell site. So hopefully that helps. Like I said, it's important that we as healthcare providers understand the difference, but that term, people throw those terms, use them interchangeably, okay? But what I want you guys to know is the difference between hypoxemia and hypoxia. One is tissue, one is in the blood, okay? And then recognizing the early and late signs of hypoxia. Okay, so hypoxia is decreased oxygen levels in the blood, often caused by hypoxemia. So what would we see in a patient who is hypoxic, meaning they have low levels of oxygen in their cells and tissues? Initially, our body's going to try and compensate. You would see a high respiratory rate. You would see a high heart rate because our cells are thinking we don't have enough oxygen. Guess what? That means the gas exchange happening at that capillary area is not enough. So I think I need more oxygen there. Breathe faster. I increase my ventilation. I need to get more blood to this area, right? Because poor perfusion is another cause of hypoxia. So your heart starts beating faster. You start to become a little bit more restless. You have anxiety. You might have some pallor, okay, some paleness, and you might have some difficulty breathing. This is your body trying to compensate and trying to increase oxygen levels in the tissues and cells. Eventually, If you keep trying to do these things, your body can only handle it for so long. Okay, that's where you'll start to see late signs of hypoxia. That's where now the body's like, okay, I can't do it anymore. My respiratory rate starts dropping. My heart rate starts dropping. You might even see hypotension with these patients. You'll start to see they're using more accessory muscles. They might have retractions. Okay, observation, that's what we were talking about in inspection. They can have decreased levels of consciousness. They can have confusion. And now instead of having pallor, colors changing a little bit more to a scarier issue, which is cyanosis, that bluish purplish color, or dusky, which is a little bit more gray. Okay, so it's important you understand these different signs, the early signs of hypoxia. Again, your body's trying to compensate, everything ramps up. We talk about tachycardia, tachypnea, you might even see some hypertension. And then eventually your body can no longer compensate and you move to these late signs of hypoxia. So be able to recognize those early and late signs of hypoxia. I do have a photo here. And it says the early rat, restlessness, anxiety, tachycardia, tachypnea, is late to bed, bradycardia, extreme restlessness, severe dyspnea. Okay, these will help you understand this early and late signs of hypoxia. Okay, so that concludes the, that concludes the physical assessment part of our assessment, the assessment part of the nursing process. Remember, assessment is not just the history or the physical assessment, it also includes our analysis of diagnostic tests. So please move on to the next video so that we can cover the diagnostic tests that are part of the assessment of the respiratory system. Actually, hopefully you kept listening. I wanted to tell you guys something that is, let me see if I can't get rid of the slide. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys that a lot of this information, I think is a great resource for you guys too, is your Kaplan book. Mine is a little older book, but it does have a table in here. I don't know if you can see it. I'll put it in front of my chest. It does have a table in here that talks about the different lung sounds, the characteristics and actual examples. This part of your this Kaplan book, you can't really see it, really does have a lot of information that we're going to be going over in this presentation. And so it's a good kind of outline for you to follow along with as we go through these different interventions and diagnostic tests. So just wanted to show you guys that resource. Now you can go ahead and move on to the next video.